Welcome to ComSpark. Today we are in Cincinnati, Ohio. My name is Jason Skidmore and I'll be your host today. I'd like to welcome our guest, Tracy Ruberg. Tracy is president of T6 Group and executive director for the circuit in Cincinnati. Tracy, welcome.
Thanks, glad to be here.
So Tracy, I'd like to talk a little bit about the topic of innovation with you today and learn from your perspective. I guess my first question would be, in the experience that you've had in the businesses that you go and do work in, what are you seeing happen in the innovation space in a lot of organizations right now?
So the thing that's amazing is obviously technology is what's driving so much innovation through every industry and every part of the country and the world today. So it's been awesome to watch that change over the years, going back to just even cell phones and the internet to where we are now. So if we look at where cell phones started and we think about what they do now, I don't know about you, but I sure didn't picture all of those things. And so looking today and going, okay, with what we have today, what's really going to be here in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now?
Right.
Technology is clearly the driver to all of that. So, of course, here in Cincinnati, we always say that we're a little slower to get those things happening, but I don't find that necessarily to be the case. You've got robots being investigated at our airport. You've got people working with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and everybody's going, what is that? Frankly, I'm still confused. I don't know how to use it.
Right.
But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that a few years from now, we may be looking at banking and handling money and paper in ways we just never even fathomed. And so I think it's critical for all of our organizations to keep an open mind and think about how they can leverage that, because those that don't are clearly going to be left behind.
Yeah. Awesome. I think you have such a unique perspective on this topic because you run your own business, right? You help other companies sort of drive these key initiatives, whether it's innovation or special projects that they have going on. And then you also, through your role with the circuit, you have the ear and are plugged in with IT leadership throughout the city. So as you kind of merge those three together, what are the biggest challenges facing companies today as they do try to innovate internally? What are the keys to success behind those types of projects?
Great point, and you're right. I'm so blessed to have that perspective and be able to see what so many people are doing at all different levels and industries. The ironic thing is, it still comes down to some basic things. It comes down to communication, and it comes down to buy-in.
Yeah.
So technology led the way, and people started to do some things. Then it kind of shifted and became the back office plumbing. Yeah, just make it work. Just be there. And now we're seeing the shift that people are finally recognizing, hey, this really can be our differentiator. It should be leading the way for us. Yes, we still have to do the plumbing.
Sure.
Yes, email has to be there. The network has to be up. But we need to be in front of that and figuring out how we can make our customers' lives better with what we do. And technology is going to enable that. Ironically, I find myself often speaking to both circuit members and my clients about the fact that technology is clearly a driver and it should lead the way to doing things better, but it's not necessarily always the answer. Don't implement technology just for technology's sake. Make sure you know what your outcome needs to be.
Right.
And get the buy-in. So I've kind of coined that the sandwich approach. Success equals building the great sandwich. You got to have the top-down support, but you got to have the bottom-up.
Yeah.
So get the organization buying in and doing, because the change required for innovation is pain.
Right.
And people don't want to make that change. So if they're not going to change, they're not going to support that initiative you wanted to do, they're going to indirectly or directly sabotage your effort, and you're not going to get the result you should.
Yeah.
But by building the right sandwich with the right team members, you can have great results.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. So in building that sandwich, I think of the word collaboration, right? And one of the things I love about technology is it facilitates collaboration, whether it's in a business, in our personal lives, whatever the case may be. So how do you effectively drive that collaboration to get that sandwich built, right? Like, what are some of the things that you've seen or had to do in that?
I'm seeing people step back and start to really analyze their projects in a deeper way and trying to do two key things. One, they do more upfront work.
Yeah.
to get that buy-in, and they're bringing more people into the equation. So if you want to institute a massive system change, whether that be ERP or a new video conferencing, don't just use your executive suite, because especially for ERP, they're not the ones really using the system day to day. It's the folks out in the business. Yeah. So bring them in. Have them walk through that process. What do you do today? What would you do if you could build it from scratch? Why do you do that and getting to that why? So that upfront work is critical. The other big thing that is just a pet peeve of mine, I've seen people miss it for decades, is the communication. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets all excited at the beginning of a project. You create a name, you roll it out, you say, here's what it's going to do for us, and then you start to implement it, and then the first challenge hits, and something gets delayed a little, and it takes longer than everybody wants, and now we're 3 months, 6 months down the road, and everybody's forgotten the hoorah, and there's been nothing else. So they're like, yeah. So I think those are the two biggest things I see as a need, and people are starting to pay attention to that and recognize that collaboration that has to take place comes from involvement, direct hands-on involvement, but then sharing that involvement and experience with the rest of the organization, making sure there's an actual marketing and communication plan around what you're doing. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, great. So a little bit of a sidebar to this whole topic, I guess, and just again leaning on your experience and the way you work with so many different IT leaders. What do you see as the biggest challenge? If I'm a CIO or an IT manager today, what are the biggest challenges I'm facing?
I think there's two things. One, the rate of change continues to be significant, and it means having to stay up on lots of other things that they've never had to before. Mm-hmm. So how do you continue to do that? It's one of the only fields that you can be an expert in, if you're in your 20s or if you're in your 50s.
Yeah, right. That's a great point.
10,000 hours comes pretty quick, and you can do that in your 20s now with these technologies.
Yeah.
I think the other challenge, unfortunately, still continues to be that some folks don't recognize that technology can lead the way, and that they need to be upfront and part of initial things, as opposed to, we're doing this. Oh, we better call the IT guys. We're installing tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so sadly, that one's still out there.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, kind of just one more quick question to throw at you in regards to that. When you've been plugged in on a lot of these initiatives, and you build that sandwich, and there's a successful project, do you see a recurring value to the organization from what was learned during that process? Is there any kind of ongoing awareness?
I think so. I think there's, again, a couple of things that come out of it. One, if you've done the deep dive work initially, and you've gone through that process map, and you've identified where the significant points of change are going to be, that helps you not only implement the project correctly, but get in a pattern of doing that type of evaluation ongoing. So that the key is you want to be able to sustain that level of analysis and change and process.
Right.
It's not an event. It is a process. It is a long, ongoing system. Right. And so when they do that work up front, you should have data that enables you to educate and train employees. Yeah. Not only the initial part of the process, but then any new employees that come in down the road, and then it makes it a lot easier to update and keep that going rather than building from scratch. And then I think when they see that success, they get better at it, and so the next project, it gets easier and easier, so that it self-sustains.
Sure.
I think those are the benefits.
Great. Well, Tracy, thanks so much for being with me today. Thanks for doing this. It was great to hear from you, and really appreciate all your thoughts.
Thanks. I always have fun.
I would like to thank Tracy for joining us today, and for those listening to the interview, to learn more, go to ComSpark.tech.